Before we get started, volunteers, who's feeling like reading this morning? Anybody? Anybody feeling like reading? Mike beat you to it by half a second. Half a second.
He's quick.
I say we just get started. We're in Exodus 19. I guess I will do a little bit of recap. The Israelites have exited. They have exodus out of Egypt. There was a song and dance at the end, and then the tests started. We had 3 tests that we covered. And then there was a war with the Amalekites, and then Jethro visits Moses. He gives him some advice about delegating some of the tasks that he has. And that brings us to chapter 19 at Mount Sinai. And this is a picture. I don't know if there's discussions or doubt over which mountain is Mount Sinai, but if you look up Mount Sinai, this is the picture that you get. It's quite steep, and there's actually a trail you can go and climb up this. About 2,500 feet of elevation gain. To give you some perspective, if you're standing in Bluefield, if you're standing at Walmart, you're looking at East River Mountain. That is about 1,000 feet from right there to the top of East River Mountain. So this is 2.5 times that. It's a significant mountain, significant way up. And so with that, Mike, we're going to do the whole chapter. You volunteered. You get 25 verses here.
I'll have to ask next time. On the first day of the 3rd month after the Israelites left Egypt, on that very day, they came to the desert of Sinai. After they set out from Rephidim, they entered the desert of Sinai, and Israel camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of the nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of the priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites." So Moses went back and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words the Lord had commanded him to speak. The people all responded together, "We will do everything the Lord has said." So Moses brought their answer back to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that the people will hear me speaking with you and will always put their trust in you." Then Moses told the Lord what the people had said. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready by the 3rd day, because on that day the Lord will come down on the Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. Put limits for the people around the mountain and tell them, be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain is to be put to death. They are to be stoned and shot with arrows. Not a hand is to be laid on them. No person or animal shall be permitted to live. Only when the ram's horn sounds a long blast may they approach the mountain." After Moses had gone down to the mountain to the people, he consecrated them, and they washed their clothes. Then he said to the people, "Prepare yourselves for the 3rd day. Abstain from sexual relations." On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended on it with fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, "Go down and warn the people, so they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them." Moses said to the Lord, "The people cannot come up Mount Sinai, because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy." The Lord replied, "Go down and bring Aaron up with you, but the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them.
All right. So we'll start with the question, but before that, I'll give you a little warning. There's a twist in here, a few cultural things, a few things with the language that might change how we view this. But before we get to that, what things do you see in here? Are there any questions, any things that pop out that you see?
Death if they touch the mountain.
So when I first read this, I thought, well, how would you summarize this? Don't touch the mountain. Don't touch the mountain, or you will die. That's like if you wanted to summarize the whole chapter, I think that's what you would say. Yeah.
The description, the Lord will break out against them.
Yes, I saw that.
Phrase.
And specific way to say it, right? Break out against them. And I didn't do any word study on that. Like I don't, but it sticks out, right? Yeah.
When you hear and also read the chapter, there is no confusion when God speaks. His instructions are very, very clear, and maybe he was trying to reach out to all levels of education. He's made it very, very clear, if you do this, this will happen to you. If you do not do this, this will happen to you.
Very, very interesting. And that's exactly the same. Like, I think we had the same thing. Like, read this, don't touch the mountain. Don't touch the mountain. Now, that's one of the things I'm kind of warning you about. We'll get to that a little later and see exactly what this language is saying. But, yeah.
Say, given human nature, I may not have thought about touching that wall, but if it said, don't touch wet paint, then I'm going to be curious, is this still wet? No, I'm going to touch it. So, were there any people tempted, or did they have the proper fear for God? Was anybody saying, oh, I didn't think about going up the mountain, but I think I'll go up the mountain?
Well, a very interesting thing, because what does it describe? The mountain does not look like this, by the way. What is going on with this mountain? It's on fire.
Yes.
There's lightning. There's smoke. It's shaking. Okay? And then if you see a mountain like that, okay, no, I'm not touching it. I'm running
Right.
the other way. And so it's kind of like, wait a minute, why does he need to tell them? And then it's going to come up again. In fact, when I was reading this, one of the things that stuck out to me is like, it gets to the part where God's like, don't touch the mountain. And Moses is like, you already told us they can't touch the mountain. And it's almost like Moses doesn't want to go back down. Because he had just told the people not to touch the mountain. He climbs the mountain. The mountain, did I say it was 2,500 feet in elevation? I didn't say that yet.
Yeah.
2,500 feet in elevation. He's just climbed this mountain. God's like, go tell the people not to touch it. Moses is like, I just told them not to touch it. And I was like, wait a minute, how many times has he been up this mountain? This is the third time he's been up this mountain. He goes up once and God's like, okay, go. Basically, ask the people if they want to do this. Let's get their response. Moses goes back down, gets their response, comes back up to God. God gives him these instructions, tells him to consecrate them. Moses comes back down, consecrates the people, puts limits around. That word limits, by the way, has a connotation of rope. I thought, like, what did they like? Take police tape? Well, it means rope. Basically, they put some kind of physical boundary around this thing. Moses goes back up. God says, go back down and tell the people not to touch the mountain. What? What's going on with that? But yeah, all good things. Anything else? Because there's a couple things that stick out to me. When we started out, it's going to tell us the day this happens, and then it's going to say, on that very day. I can't think of another place in Scripture. I mean, it's very rare for it to tell us what day something happens. That just doesn't happen very often. And then to say it and then say, on that very day, it is definitely pointing that out. And you can go back and look at, we had some days in the previous stories. And it's going to tie all the way back to the Exodus. That's the first time it's going to say, on this day, because you're going to have the Passover. And it's on this day. We're not going to dive too much into that, but that sticks out like a sore thumb.
I was curious about the idea, I may be wrong, but if that mountain's on fire, how did Moses get up?
Exactly. He walks
Up the
into the fire, into the smoke. One of the things that sticks out to me, God says, I bore you out of Egypt on eagle's wings. Moses is 80 years old. He's doing this hike that not many 80-year-olds could do. And it almost seems like he's frustrated that he's having to go up and down so many times. And this is the first time that the word eagle is used. And it's almost like God is helping them, right? Later in Psalms, we're going to get this. He will bear you up like on eagle's wings. You will run and not get tired. It's almost like there's some help going on here. So it seems like God is helping Moses on the way to do this. Very good. Then there's this phrase, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. What does it mean to be a kingdom of priests? What does a priest do?
He takes care of everybody. Or keeps them in the line.
Keeps them in line. In a way, you could say that's one of their functions.
Go-between.
He teaches
Mediator.
a go-between, a mediator. And I would say that's the main function. All these other things, I think, are things they do, but they go between man and God. Like the things, not everyone, we're going to find out, in the law can offer a sacrifice, but the priest can offer a sacrifice for the people. But he says here, a kingdom of priests. And he says specifically, the whole earth is mine. But you're going to be a treasured possession and a kingdom of priests. In other words, you're going to have to be a mediator for everyone else. I'm going to set you aside. You're special, right? But the purpose is so that you can bring everyone else to me. And this is throughout history, I don't think we've ever had a kingdom of priests. In fact, the priesthood are people that are set apart to do the priestly duty, right?
We've seen the priest of Midian, we've seen the priest of this and that.
And Egypt
So
has
far.
priests.
And Egypt has priests, and that was perhaps our first introduction to circumcision was the priests in Egypt.
Yes.
So, we've seen individuals, but never,
A kingdom of priests? Like they had to be like, what? A kingdom of priests? All right, so now it's time for our first twist. To start to understand this, we're going to have to understand that this is a wedding. Did you bring the clicker?
I did. Ready?
Yeah. So the reason we know it's a wedding, structurally it's a wedding, but it also uses language. Wedding language, specifically. Now, some of the things we've been studying, you might wonder, like, well, did the people that heard this, did they really get that the first time? And so some of the cultural things, yes, absolutely. They would have seen it differently than us because that was their culture and it was written in their culture. Some other things I think would take them a while to study out and to get these connections that we're seeing. But the fact that this is a wedding is just plainly obvious. It's pretty much like you had a young lady in a white dress and she's like, I got my something old, my something new, my something borrowed. I need something blue. Okay, and everybody knows, what is this girl doing? She's getting married because that is specifically marriage language. And that treasured possession, that's marriage language that's happening here. So the original audience, they understand immediately this is a marriage. So we got to talk very briefly about what happens in a marriage. How does the process work back then? And I'm going to give you a couple resources. So the Bema episode on this is going to go very deep into marriage and the culture of marriage, what happens, and a lot of other connections through the Bible to marriage. There's also another great podcast called The Bible Project. Their episode on this, not going to talk so much about marriage, but it's going to go very deep into the language and what's happening when you look at the larger story. So both of those are very good. If you want help find Talk to Me or Johns, we'll send you a link to either one of those. But anyway, a marriage, it starts with an engagement, right? Somehow you got to select the person, and we know that It's really up to the father, ultimately up to the father. But it's not just the father that decides, the father of the groom that decides this is the girl we're going after. It's something that happens with the whole family. They would have a discussion. And he's going to talk to people about this first. Probably going to talk to his son about maybe which girls he has his eye on. But ultimately, he's going to go and he's going to make a deal with the bride of the father. They're going to be the parties that arrange this. But the groom is still going to propose to the bride. And he's going to do that by offering her a cup. And basically, if she drinks from the cup, that's her way of accepting this proposal. If she refuses it, which we don't have any records of her actually doing that because a lot of work and the whole families are invested in this, it's just not likely that she's going to refuse. But the groom actually offers her a cup. She accepts by taking that cup. And then the groom goes away. The groom goes to prepare a place for them to live. Now, during the times if they lived in houses, and we know that the Israelites are nomadic at this point. They're living in tents. But at the point where they live in houses, they would just build on to the main house, the main structure, another room for the new bride and groom to live in. And that's what the groom does. He goes away to build this room onto the house where they can live. But it's his father that decides when it's done. And the only person that knows when this wedding is going to happen is the father of the groom. The groom is building this, but he's doing it under the instruction of his father and waiting on his father to say it's done. So finally the father says, it's done, let's go. They gather up their whole family. Like in this moment, he's like there's like a final inspection. Yeah, that's done, let's go. And then they get everybody together then. They travel to wherever the bride's family is. The lookout sees them coming, is going to announce, hey, they're coming. They're coming. We see them coming. The bride is taken away for her preparations, whatever they're going to do for her. Part of that is a ceremonial bath that she is going to take in a mikveh. And a mikveh is just the place where it's a ceremonial bath for women. So whatever ceremonial baths they have to take, it's done in a mikveh. So part of that is she's going to get separated from the groom immediately. They're taking her off as soon as they realize he's coming. The ceremony is going to begin with the blowing of a shofar. And a shofar is a horn that's made out of a ram's horn, and you can blow it like an instrument. And that's going to announce that, hey, the ceremony has begun. And then probably the bride is going to arrive and meet the groom under a huppah, which is basically like some posts with fabric over top of it. Maybe it's decorated with flowers and stuff. It represents the presence of God, that they're doing this under the presence of God. And then during their marriage ceremony, they are going to get the ketubah, which is basically the rules, a contract, or a covenant for their marriage. And it basically lays out, here's how our marriage is going to work. These are the things that we're going to do, that we're not going to do. Sometimes it might function as like a prenup, like, well, if you send this bride back, then this is what you're going to have to pay if you send this bride back. So those are all of the elements, or at least not all, no, it's not all of them. It's some of the elements of the marriage that they go through. And then we can start to see them in this story. Is there an engagement that happens? Does God make an offer to these people? Hey, do you want to be my bride? Yeah, that's the first trip up the mountain. Moses goes up. God says, this is what you are to say to the house of Jacob. You've seen what I've done. If you fully obey me, then you will be my treasured possession. Moses goes back down to get an answer from the people. And it actually says, they say, we will do everything the Lord has said. That's their answer. And then Moses is going to tell the Lord what the people said. See, this is really is, he went down, got an answer, and brought it back up to God. This is an engagement. Is the bride going to be take a ceremonial bath? Is she going to get a ceremonial cleansing? Absolutely, the people are going to be consecrated. That's what's going to happen next. And by the way, who is the bride? In this case, the whole nation, right? That's who Moses went down to talk to. God said, you're going to be a whole kingdom of priests. You're going to be a holy nation for me if you follow this. So the bride is the whole nation. The groom is God. Okay? And then we get to, I'm going to start here in verse 11. And be ready by the third day. And the third day often means like the day of decision. The day where this thing is going to go down. So when Abraham is told to sacrifice Isaac, he makes a journey, and it's on the third day he looks up and he sees the mountain. This is the day that I got to go sacrifice Isaac. So the third day is often this day of decision, because on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all people, put limits around it. Wait a minute, I went to the wrong verse. So this is a description of what's going to happen. And then in verse 16 is when it actually happens. On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. And we had our blowing of the shofar. Or shofar. Yes, the shofar has blown. And everyone in the camp trembled. Is that what happens in a marriage ceremony? No, not okay. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace. The whole mountain trembled violently. The sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder. Then Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered. The trumpet's blowing louder. Why is it doing that? I mean, I've never been to an ancient Eastern marriage ceremony, but my understanding is like they blow the trumpet and then it starts. Not like they blow the trumpet and then they blow it louder and then they blow it louder and then they blow it louder. And I kind of think of this like in our weddings. What really starts the wedding? When does it begin?
The music starts.
Not just the music.
The bridal mark.
Dun, 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 dun. And what happens when you hear those chords? Every head in the audience goes where? Shoo. They want to see the bride coming. Who is the bride? What is the nation doing? Trembling. And then it's almost like, shoom, heads go back. Where is she? Dun, 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 dun! Is she coming?
Yeah.
What's happening? And then Moses speaks, and the voice of God answers, and he calls him up. So then we get to this question. Well, wait a minute. Didn't they do what they were? What actually were they supposed to do? Because it says on the third day, and this is in verse 13. Well, let me start in verse 12. Be careful that you do not go up to the mountain or touch the mountain, touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. And I like that you said, Marcus, in no uncertain terms, everybody can understand. Don't touch the mountain. He shall surely be stoned or shot with arrows. You can't even go lay hands on this person. You're going to kill him from afar. Not a hand is to be laid on him. Whether man or animal, he shall not be permitted to live. Only when the ram's horn sounds a long blast may they go up to the mountain. Okay? So, well, I mean, like Moses led them there. That's what it's going to say. Didn't they do their part? The only problem is what I read is not what it says. I like this Bible, but it's the older version of the NIV. Can somebody read the second part of verse 13? Who has the newest NIV version? And it's probably what you read. Just read that again. Only when
the ram's horn sounds a long blast, may they approach the mountain.
Okay, so they've revised that a bit. I think this is like the 84 version. Before they said they may go up to, now you've got approach. Turns out that word approach, you know what that word approach means? Climb or ascend. Does not mean approach. You can look it up in Blue Letter Bible or any of the tools that will show you what these words are, how they're translated elsewhere. And then we have the word to. You said just approach the mountain. There's no preposition there, right?
Approach the mountain.
Okay, so the way it works in Hebrew is prepositions get attached to the noun. So there's a preposition for mountain, and that preposition means in, or in this context on, or onto. What this says is, when the ram's horn sounds, the long blast, they may climb up the mountain into the fire. But then this becomes, if you translated it that way, when Moses goes up and God says, go down and tell them not to touch the mountain, and Moses is like, but you already told us they couldn't touch the mountain. We built a fence around this thing and everything. Like, they can't touch the mountain. If you translated it that way, you'd be like, what is going on here? That doesn't make any sense. So what the translators, and it turns out all the major translations, the NIV, NASB, New King James, I think it's the English Standard, maybe the ESV, they all translate it this way. They have taken it and they have changed it to try to make this make more sense. But it turns out it's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to make you question, wait a minute, what exactly is going on here? Because it's clear these people were supposed to go up the mountain. It's clear this trumpet's going and going and going. It's waiting on them to do something. But what exactly? And it turns out that it's like a puzzle. It's like a riddle. And we had one of these in the first test, right? It said there was going to be, I'm going to give you a law and a statute, and then it never says what the law or statute is. It just leaves it there for us to guess. Sometimes that's the way the puzzles work. Sometimes you get a puzzle, and then you get the answer very shortly afterwards, or maybe a while afterwards. One of my favorite ones is in Numbers, and it's like 5 chapters until you get the answer. This one, it turns out, is going to come in the next chapter. Because the very next chapter, we're going to get the 10 commandments, or the 10 sayings, or the 10 words. And immediately after that is verse 18. I'm going to read verse 18 for you. When the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die." Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. God has come to test you." There's the word test again. "So that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning." And the people remained at a distance while Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. Now, if we're just reading through, and I had to read like so many times to understand how many times Moses went up the mountain, because it's not clear at first. It says Moses went up to talk to God. It's how it starts out. I'm like, did he go up the mountain or did he go over somewhere? But eventually it becomes clear because Moses comes down the mountain. It says Moses comes down the mountain. Oh no, he went up the mountain, he came down, he went up the mountain, he came down. And then if you were going through the chapter, he goes up a third time. God tells him to go back down, and that's how the chapter ends. He went down to the people and told them. And then it says, and God spoke all these words. Wait a minute, is Moses up the mountain or is he down the mountain? Because it seems like God only speaks to him when he's up the mountain. That's the point, right? He goes up to the mountain so that God can speak to him, and he comes down the mountain, to bring the message back. And then when we get done, it's clear that Moses is down there with the people, right? But it's saying that when the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet, well, when did that happen? That happens before Moses goes up the third time, right? Consecrate yourselves on the third day. And then we just read all that about there's lightning and thunder and smoke and the trumpet's getting louder. Trumpet's getting louder and louder and louder. And then Moses goes up and God tells him to come back down. And now it's saying, well, when there was the thunder and the lightning and they heard the trumpet, this is what happens. It's out of order. This is telling us what happened on that third day. It's giving us the answer to our puzzle. And the answer to our puzzle is that the people trembled, right? That's what happened. The people trembled. The people trembled, and they said to Moses, we're not going over there. Moses, you can speak to us. We're not going to talk to God. Look at the mountain. You'd have to be crazy to go over there, Moses. And Moses says, no, listen, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. God has come to test you. This is the test. That the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning. And then the very next words are, the people remained at a distance. Why does Moses tell them that? Why does he say, don't be afraid? They're like, we're not going over there. Moses says, don't be afraid. Go. Go up the mountain. Sorry. We're going to fail this. I'll take an F. We'll fail this test. Because we're not going up there. But Moses goes. And then there's another puzzle here. God says you'll be a kingdom of priests. We're going to read the law. Is that how it works? Are they all priests? No, there's Levites. And they're the priests. There's Aaron and his descendants. And then there's like a larger priesthood of the Levites. Not anyone can just offer a sacrifice. That's very clear in the law. They're not a kingdom of priests. They were supposed to be, but they're not. Why? Because they didn't go up the mountain. And when you read it that way, and part of that comes from understanding it's a marriage, right? The shofar is sounding, and it's sounding louder and louder. It's expecting. What's supposed to happen here is that the bride is supposed to approach the groom and meet under the chuppah in God's presence, right there in God's presence. Part of it comes from understanding the words. That God actually does tell them to go up the mountain, and they won't go. But after they won't go, now this starts to make sense when Moses gets up there. Moses gets up there, first thing God says is go back down and tell them not to touch the mountain. Why can't they touch it now? That's the puzzle. If we read this the way it actually says, it's like you can't go to the mountain, you can't go to the mountain, don't touch the mountain until the third day. When you hear the trumpet, then you go up the mountain. The trumpet sounds, they're not going up the mountain. They're too afraid. And when Moses goes up there, God says, offer's gone. It's rescinded. Go back down and tell them they can't touch the mountain. You're still going to be for me a holy nation. It doesn't mean that I'm through with you. We're done. But you didn't pass this test. And remember that the test is not so much pass, fail. In this case, it's let's see if you're ready. Let's see if you're ready to be a kingdom of priests. Not quite ready yet. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take 1/12 of you. I'll take one tribe. They'll be the priests. And man, it's so good if you read the story. There's so much more here. I mean, because what's going to happen is Moses is going to go up there. They're going to make a golden calf. There's going to be punishment for that. Who are the priests going to be? The ones that come to Moses' side to go through with their swords and to kill the people. They're going to end up becoming the priests. God's still going to marry them. They're still going to be his nation. But they're not going to be all quite that it could have been if they had accepted the proposal.
And God says, if you come with me, I'll keep you from sinning. Trust me. They didn't, and guess what they did?
And guess what because they're down there on the mountain. They're down. Oh, that's so good. If you come up, I'll keep you from sinning. But they're not where they're supposed to be. Man, reminds me of David. Not where he's supposed to be. And then he sins. Any other observations? I got another one real quick here. But any other things you see from this? Yes.
It's a faith walk that they fail to ask.
Yeah. I mean, I love that word faith walk, because before it's we're thirsty. Before it's we need bread. But that bread was really about trusting God, right? The bread's going to be there 6 days. On the seventh day, it's not going to be there. You got to get double. Can you trust that because God says this, it's actually going to happen? But this is like the mountain is on fire. Walk into it. Like, what a picture that is. What a picture that is. This is the kind of people that I need. The people that'll walk through fire when I tell them to walk through fire. They're not going to walk through fire.
It's a unique way of living.
Yes, a very unique way. Now, one of the things that stands out to me about this is they're going to be a kingdom of priests, but they're not, but they are, but they're not, but they are. It's eventually what God is going for, and you can see a prophecy about that in Joel. Eventually I'm going to bypass the priesthood, and it's not going to be like that. But there's another thing that God is saying here is that I need you all to win over the rest of my possession. The whole earth is mine, and I want them. I want them all. But I've got a job for you. I need you, Israel, to be the go-between between me and the rest of the world. I need you to show them who I am and what I want you to do. And it turns out, I think we just saw that this morning. Because I tell you, I read this, I had the same thoughts you did. I had the same thoughts you did. Man, God just really doesn't want them to touch this mountain. And we have kind of, I've seen most people interpret this, and probably myself, that the point of this chapter is that God is holy. God is holy, and you better not, man, you better not cross God's holiness. We've forgotten really quickly that just the chapter before last, when the Israelites were rebellious, when they were rude, God said, hit me with a stick. Nakar me with the stick. Because that's how much I love this rebellious people. God is holy. We'll find that out next week. God is holy and loving. One of those is much bigger. One of those is way bigger. In fact, it's 1,000 to 3. It's 1,000 to 3 times bigger. But in order to see this, like, we needed help. I needed help. You needed help. We needed help. We needed somebody to explain this, because I didn't know it was a marriage until somebody explained to me what a Jewish marriage is. I didn't know what these words actually said until someone who understood Hebrew told me what they said. I need help. It's almost like I need the Jews to understand what this says. It's almost like I need a priest to understand this, and God gave us that. But have we listened to them? Have we listened to them? And I really hope that that's what we're doing right now, is that we are listening to them so we can understand what this is saying. We've got a few minutes. If anybody has any comments. Yes?
1 Peter chapter 2 and Revelation chapter 1 describe Christians as a kingdom of priests.
Exactly.
In the new covenant.
In the new covenant. And it starts with, we get a prophecy of it in Joel, and then it's going to happen in Pentecost. And Pentecost is going to come with wind and fire. Right? It's going to have imagery back to this. And basically saying, I'm going to pour my Spirit out on all flesh. On all flesh. And it's certainly happening. But you know what? Like, the thing that strikes me about this is that I sometimes feel like we're like, man, the Jews, they don't get it because they don't get Jesus. They don't really see what the Bible is saying here. I think we got that a little bit backwards. They're the ones that understand at least this part, and we'll talk about the New Testament too when we get there. They understand it. Why? Because it was written to them. The Bible was written for you, but it was not written to you. And if you want to understand what it's saying, you got to understand the people that it was written to. And God made the early church. He went to the Jews first, and he went to the Gentiles. And throughout the New Testament, we are going to see churches with them together. Like at first, it's going to be all Jews. Then it's going to be Jews and Gentiles. And do you think these Romans could go back and read this Old Testament and understand all of these things? Wasn't their culture. They got a different culture. How are they going to understand it? How are they going to read the Old Testament and understand what it's saying? Because the Jews are going to help them understand it. And I believe that's the way God intended it to work. Anything else?
I like how they had to, they walked into darkness, but it's fire and it's almost like they walked into something that they couldn't see. Even though it's on fire and they just couldn't understand. Like Marcus said, it's a walk of faith. You step into something you do not know. Was it darkness or was God in the darkness, or just were they so afraid they didn't understand?
That is so good, because throughout, like from the very beginning, you're just like, well, darkness and God creates light. Chaos and God creates order. This mountain looks like chaos and darkness. But it's also on fire, and fire gives light. And so you could try to imagine, like, what does it actually look like? It certainly says darkness. But it's also on fire and it's light. And so, like, what is that? And it is like, it's like this walk of faith. You got to trust me. If you get in there, you'll be able to see. God will bear you up on eagle's wings. How are you going to get up there? We brought you out of Egypt, didn't you? Didn't he? Brought you through the sea, didn't he? I think he'll get you up there. All right, we better close. We better close with that.